TV, and you know this is your source of inspiration, motivation, and healing. And you know Jesus Christ is Lord over here, but we absolutely cannot stand any gatekeeping. Listen, check us out right now. Anytime if you're in the Baltimore area, come on down. If you got some things to say, like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe. We have another awesome episode, and I got my friend Pastor David Eadie.
Yes, sir.
David Eadie, my guy, man. Listen here, and I know we come to talk about a nice little subject, man. This is something dear to my heart. I'm always looking to learn on this subject, and I see that you've been going to school for this. You've recently graduated, right?
Recently graduated with my
Yeah.
master's in apologetics and evangelism.
Apologetics, and that's what we're gonna talk about. Tell everybody that may not know what apologetics mean and what it's about. Give them a little small definition.
So, small definition, the word apologetics is not like what it sounds in our contemporary understanding of the word apology. You know, it's not saying I'm sorry, if you will.
Yeah.
It comes from a Greek word, apologia, which means in defense of. So, we see it in the scripture in First Peter 3:16.
Yes, sir.
Where he says, you know, we are to give people a reason for the hope that we have, right? If we're
Okay.
asked, why do you have the hope that you have? We have to give them a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so what apologetics is a reasoned defense. It is my ability to communicate, articulate the reason why
Oh, that's dope.
I believe what I believe.
Okay. So listen, y'all. We about to get in the thick of this. We really about to get in the thick of this. And I know apologetics and how we doing evangelism. I mean, there's some things that I see when we're doing outreach. A lot of times I think the misconception is, hey, we just need to go and tell them about Jesus. That's it. And they should come on in. It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I think we have to learn how to understand culture,
Absolutely.
understand pain points, being able to be good listeners, and being able to give that response. So, how do you approach it?
And see, I'm glad that you mentioned the word culture, which I think is very key.
Yeah.
Historically, when we look at apologetics,
Yes, sir.
it was more from an evidence-based approach,
Uh-huh.
giving people historical reasons and
Mm-hmm.
facts and things of that nature, which is important and good.
Yeah.
But one of the more significant ways of bringing the message of the gospel to individuals is understanding how to communicate in terms of worldview. And our worldview
Uh-oh.
is attached to our culture. And so, we hear those words and oftentimes they become like buzzwords.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
there have been studies that have shown
Mm-hmm.
that when an individual can connect culturally to
Yeah.
information,
Mm-hmm.
then they are more able to understand and identify with the information.
So
being
what
given.
does that look like?
So essentially, when you look at, let's go to, when you look at Paul
Yeah.
and Mars Hill, like, so Paul goes to Athens,
Okay.
and he's going to communicate the gospel to individuals in Athens. And what he does is he picks up on something that is in their culture that they understand, and he begins to talk about the tomb of the unknown God, right?
Yeah.
He's, I see you have this inscription, the unknown God, and he's going to communicate to them who God is using something that is already associated in their understanding and their culture. And the reason why this is significant is because they have been praying to this unknown God because they've been needing miracles in their society.
Right.
And
Right.
they prayed to numerous gods in this culture, but they were arrived at a place to where none of these gods were answering. So they began to pray to this unknown God. God, whoever you are,
Oh.
we're going to pray to you.
Yeah.
We don't
yeah.
know his name, but we're appealing to the God because obviously who we've been praying to
It's
is not working.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Paul shows up and says, listen, this unknown God that you've been praying to,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you who that is. So he's able to bring the Christocentric understanding of God
Yeah.
to a culture who did not know him,
Absolutely.
but yet we're reaching out to him.
Mm-hmm.
So there are individuals out there who are attempting to get understanding on who God is. Our job is to say, listen, you're reaching for something.
Right.
Let me articulate to you through your cultural understanding what it is that you're actually reaching
I
out
think
to.
that's very interesting because sometimes we miss that part as far as understanding the culture. I
Un-
don't think we take time to really understand the culture. And what I'm saying about that, we come from a viewpoint a lot of the times as leaders or people in the church. We come from, hey, that's the world.
right,
Those are the things of the world.
right,
I don't care to know about those things. I don't care to understand. I know I have Jesus, and that's what I can give you.
right.
But I think there's a level of understanding and a patience that we should have. I think that's where we miss the mark. Is the
Exactly.
research.
I agree 100%. And I think what we have to do is we have to first
Yeah.
we have to understand our own worldviews,
Yeah.
because there is a biblical worldview,
Uh-oh, watch it.
and then there's a church culture worldview.
Listen, we're running down that lane right now. It's about to get hot. Go ahead and explain. Explain, Pastor.
So if you were listening to service last night,
Yes.
Bishop Carolyn Showell preached a dynamic word.
Dynamic
message.
word. Yeah, dynamic word.
And in part of that message, she did something that really spoke to me in terms of, she didn't just talk about the numerous, say, organizations that we have.
Right.
She actually gave data. This is the amount of service, this is the amount of conventions, this is the amount of convocations that are going on in this period of time.
Absolutely.
She made it relevant to us in the sense that, let's not just talk about us having these separate things. Let's look at the raw data of how separated we are. And understanding that if we were to have the ability to go to these different reformations, you'll understand that each one has a different culture that's associated with it.
Absolutely.
And we're just talking different culture within, say, just the predominantly African American churches.
Yeah.
Not dealing when we get into other
Other cultures.
cultures and races
Yeah.
and things of that nature.
Absolutely,
So
bro.
each one will have a cultural way that they associate the gospel. And oftentimes when we reach out to people, what we're telling them is that in order to get God, you have to transform your culture into our church culture, not necessarily into Christ. And so what happens is that when people reject our culture, we associate that with them rejecting Christ.
And that's not it. I just don't want your culture.
And here it is.
Uh-huh.
When Jesus came,
Yes.
they rejected him because Jesus did not necessarily associate himself only with culture. He
Wow.
transcended it.
Wow. Wow.
When we talk cultural apologetics, Jesus goes
Yeah.
to the Samaritan woman at the well
Yeah, he disrupts it.
and disrupts culture. She even says, "Why are you here?"
Why are you here? Why are you talking to me? You shouldn't be talking to me. And it was a form of that culture at that time where he was talking to her. That was a form of racism and separatism back then. Like, we shouldn't even be talking. But Jesus is like, hey, I'm beyond culture.
Beyond culture.
So why can't we go beyond culture?
I believe that one of the things that happens when we get into culture, when we get into worldviews,
Yes, sir.
we become protective
Uh-huh.
of who we are because we identify with a certain culture. And whenever something or someone comes in that disrupts our comfortability, we retreat and
Yeah.
we put up walls. And
Yeah.
then we seek to isolate and extricate that which is coming against our norm and our cultural norms.
So that leads me to the next question. And I told y'all this is about to get hot. So the next question is, as far as apologetics and outreach and the things that we do, so that assimilation piece, when a person does come into the fold and we begin to talk to them and they reject the culture, a lot of times the rejection of the culture is from, you have too many clicks. How do we adjust that part of the culture? And I know as long as they're seeing, you'll have clicks. But I've always wondered, how do we handle that, or even try to mitigate it in ways?
I think one of the best ways that we can mitigate it is to understand how we work with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, for an example,
Mm-hmm.
a clique is a clique when it becomes exclusive
Yeah.
and when it becomes separatist.
Yeah.
But when we move beyond a church model
Uh-huh.
that is only built on the whole
Yeah.
and works within the development of small groups where people are able to work within groups that they can grow in,
Yes.
that they can build and cultivate relationships in. This is where, one of the things when we look at Acts chapter 2,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times as Pentecostals, as apostolics, there's a focus on verse 38, but we really fail to recognize the miracle
Mm-hmm.
of the day of Pentecost was the coming together of culture. The fact that you had all of these different nationalities now
Yes.
becoming one,
Yes.
and then from that point continuing to fellowship.
Wait a second. So pause. You mean to tell me I didn't have to assimilate? If I'm from Turkey, I do not have to come and act like I'm from Greece.
No.
I do not have to act like I'm from Rome. And I think we missed that part. That's very interesting. I've never looked at it like that.
And if you look at that, that was a lot of the controversy
Yeah.
that surrounded the early church, because you had the Gentile believers coming in with one set of customs,
Yes.
and then you had the Jewish believers at the time that had another set of customs. And instead of coming together and recognize, look, I don't have to become different than who I am
Mm-hmm.
to sit down and eat with you. And Paul is trying to encourage this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Paul literally stands up to Peter. And one of the misconceptions that we have with this text is that Peter is often said that he was racist. Peter
Uh-huh.
wasn't being racist. He was more afraid to be seen as breaking his cultural norms around those who he was surrounded by.
Right.
So
Right.
Peter, it wasn't just as simple Peter's just being racist. Peter has come up as a Jew, and he's struggling with, look, this is coming against everything that I've always been.
Right.
And Paul is now challenging Peter and the rest of the brethren and say, listen, your culture is not what made you Christ.
Absolutely.
Because Christ
good. That's
came
good. That's good.
so that there was no longer Jew and Gentile.
Right.
So really there's a way where we understand that we do not have to cause people to assimilate to a cultural expectation in order for them to become like Christ.
So this type of conversation is disrupting everything that we know, according to our church culture. Because and being 100 about it, like I've seen it. The way I've grown up all my life in church. I need you to assimilate to be like us. I need you to change to be like us.
Right.
I need you to look like there's some growth in your life. And what we associate growth with is you're putting on a suit. But that's not it. Is that what you're saying?
100%. Because see, what happens in a lot of cases, not in every case,
Yes, sir.
but what happens in a lot of cases, people will assimilate so that they can feel accepted.
Okay.
But acceptance doesn't necessarily mean change.
Absolutely.
And what has happened is, so that I can be accepted, I can learn how to change my behavior around people where that behavior is expected, right? So some of the biggest code switchers around
Uh-oh. We talking about code switches.
are right in the church, right?
Yes, sir.
We
Yes,
learn
sir.
how to code switch.
We love the code switch.
But it's not change. It's not
Right.
true transformation.
Right. Absolutely. I can sit here and be like, hey, Pastor David Eadie, what's happening?
Right.
Bishop walked past. Praise the Lord, Bishop. Praise the Lord, Bishop. You know, how you doing, Bishop? And I mean, hey, to each his own. But I appreciate the fact that you brought that out. And I think that we need to be more authentic. But I think some of that comes from a lack of understanding, because if they don't understand and know that you don't have to assimilate in order to be Christ, right, to the culture, right? I think that's where we have some of these downfalls. And there's been times where I've been in service and I've come across a young person, and a young person is acting like they're 60 because that's what they see, and they feel like, hey, I have to do this in order to be there.
Right.
But you are not really even living your life because you're trying to be something that you're not.
Right. And so, and Jesus deals with these subjects all throughout the text.
Wow.
Jesus says things like, look, John came
Yeah.
and he didn't eat and drink,
Uh-huh.
and you talked about him.
Wow.
The Son of Man came, he came eating and drinking, and you talked about him.
Yeah.
And so there becomes this understanding that whenever we're just trying to meet an expectation, we're never going to be enough.
Yeah.
And this leads to a lot of dissonance within the lives of many believers.
Yes.
Because you're always trying to find or emulate or become something else in the process of trying to become like Christ.
Right.
Right? But how many individuals have understood how to become churchy,
Yeah.
but not really understand what it means to have the peace of God, the joy, all of the things that come along with being
You
in
talking,
Him.
sir? You talking.
And so when he says, give them a reason for the hope. Listen, the reason that I have hope,
yeah.
can we go there?
You go ahead.
The reason that
Go
I have
ahead, bro.
hope
Go
is
ahead, bro.
not based
Uh-huh.
on church affiliation. It's not based on my denomination.
Right.
It's not based on tradition. The reason that I have hope is a deeply personal. And why do you have hope?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have to be able to connect with that in a deeply impersonal. People, what they're looking for today, and in order to reach people in cultural, how can I deeply connect with this? Don't just give me facts. Tell me why.
Tell me why. And when you're dealing, like you said, now you're dealing with these souls today. Listen, why should I start? Why should I believe in your God?
Why?
Why? Because when I see you, I don't see what you're trying to tell me. And then on top of that, help me understand. Even if you get that far with them, help me to understand what you're saying here, because it's not lining up to what I'm seeing over here.
Absolutely. And see, one of the things that leads to this, and this is when we talk about, a lot of people will ask, well, what do I need, things like apologetics for to do that? We kind of teach a message almost as if, you need to have like a blind faith, right?
Right.
And a lot of times we will give this this analogy of faith in a chair, right? So you didn't inspect the chair before you sat in it.
Right.
You had faith
We do that.
chair,
We
right?
do that. Yeah.
But what we fail to realize is that you didn't expect a chair because there was already a cultural understanding of what a chair does.
Right.
Right? You grew up seeing people sit in chairs.
Yes.
You were told, go sit in
down.
that chair.
Yeah.
So because this was embedded into you, this understanding, it's not blind faith. You have faith in what culture has told you this does, right? You have a deep embedded understanding. You don't have to, you don't second guess it. So if it's not something that was created to be sat in, you'll look at it. Can I sit on that because that's not familiar for this purpose, right?
Hold on.
And so
now.
because that is
Hold
not
on now.
familiar for this purpose,
Hold on now.
now
you
I
teaching.
question it.
Yeah.
So if you see me doing something that was not designed for that purpose, you're going to ask, well, why are you doing that? Tell me why.
Yeah.
Because my understanding was that this was designed for this purpose, but I see you doing something that's contrary
Absolutely.
to what my understanding has been. Now what I need to do is communicate to you why what I'm doing, although is different than your cultural attachment to your chair, why I'm doing this differently. And why is this better? Not just blind faith, because listen, I grew up understanding that this is what I'm supposed to do, but you're telling me different, and here's why.
Absolutely. This is where I feel like we miss it. We're quick to say this is what it is, do what I say, but I'm not going to give you the reason.
Yes.
Because it worked for me. It works for me. You should allow it to work for you.
Yes.
And that should be good enough.
That should be good enough.
This generation is not going for that.
Not going for that.
They're not going for it. So I think a lot of times where we miss out on our church growth, our discipleship, our evangelism, all those things is we just say, hey, we're just going to preach the word, and that's just it. What's going on, my brother? Listen, Pastor Tim, you gotta have to come sit down with us, man. You have to come sit down with us. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. God bless you. But I think a lot of times we fall into pride because of the way we study and what we do. I think you should just listen to what I got to say because I heard from the Lord, and that's it.
That's it.
But how could that just be it when Jesus didn't ask the lady at the well just to trust him off of just blind faith? He talked to her. He told her everything. So why are we doing it out of just, hey?
And look what he did.
Yeah.
So Jesus says to
Yes,
her,
sir. Yes, sir.
there's coming a time where you're not going to worship in this mountain,
Uh-huh.
nor in Jerusalem, right?
Yeah.
Culturally,
Yeah.
wait a minute. This is what it's always been.
This is what she do.
This is what we Jerusalem,
Yep.
mountain. What are we talking about here?
Yep. That was her response. That's crazy. Her response is like, for real?
And Jesus
Yeah.
says, I'm getting ready to break your whole cultural understanding of what worship is. Because you have associated worship with a place.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have associated worship with a place.
Absolutely.
So, for an example, we'll say things like, this is going to get me in trouble.
Uh-oh.
We'll go to church. Whatever you need is in the house.
Uh-huh.
No.
Uh-huh.
Whatever you need is in him.
It's in him.
And he doesn't exist in the house. So people say, well, you say that, then people are not going to come to church. No, I want people to come
Right.
to gather together.
Right.
But what they need,
You need that principle, though.
is not in the room. What they need is in him.
It's in him.
But we communicate it as a way that you have to come here to get this.
And you don't.
No. So Jesus says there's coming a time, and now is,
Now is.
when they that worship the Father are going to worship in spirit and in truth.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, what Jesus says is that it's not just what you feel, spirit,
Yeah.
but it's also what you know, true.
Absolutely.
So the truth is, I'm giving you a reason to understand why
Why?
you worship.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Come on. Come on.
And
Come
when
on.
she gets done
Come on here.
talking to Jesus,
Come on.
she goes back to the town,
And tells the whole town why.
disrupts culture.
Disrupts culture. Absolutely.
Come see him now. Now, mind you, the conversation starts out. Go call your husband.
Yes,
I
sir.
have no husband. You said, well, you've had 5. One you with now. So she has an issue with her relationship with men, right?
Yes, sir.
This is coming. She goes back to the town where she has an issue with,
Uh-huh.
and tells the men, come see a man. So she goes and disrupts, breaks culture, and can then challenge and transform the men in her town to become like the man that she just met.
Come on, man. Come on, man. That's evangelism and apologetics at its finest.
And it started in a place where, from her understanding, Jesus wasn't even supposed to be. Why are you here?
Why are you? Boy, I'm telling y'all. Listen, y'all need to like, share, and subscribe this post. Subscribe to the channel, Social Remedy TV. This conversation is hot. This conversation is crazy. I love it, man, because I don't think in our culture, we don't talk about it enough.
No, we don't.
And from a standpoint of actual, like, we got to break down really what's the disconnect. There is a disconnect, bro.
A huge one.
A huge one. And I'm not saying you have to have 80,000 people coming to your church and things like that. But listen, he said he said, I think the harvest plentiful and laborers are few. There's a disconnect.
There's a disconnect.
And we're having fewer and fewer more laborers, but the harvest is overtaken. It's overrunning. If the if the harvest overruns the field, right? Then it just takes over. My whole thing is we all have to sit down and have these conversations with people like yourself and get an understanding and say, hey, man, how do I go minister out there? How do I understand? How do I defend the faith? And we can't. I think some of this too. I think we deal with this on another level as well, is that we don't want to look like we don't know.
Huge.
We do not want to look like we don't know. And then this is what I found out as well in being out there ministering to people is that literally sometimes some of the people of other faiths, they know you really don't know what you think you know. And some of them look at you like you're dumb. Like, I know a little bit more about your book than you.
Right.
And the understanding of what they're saying than you.
Yes.
On a practical level.
Yes. And see, now you're going and you're hitting on it in an area that becomes extremely important, which is why really being educated, informed
Yes.
on when we talk about scripture,
Yes, sir.
interpreting scripture,
Mm-hmm.
where truth is in scripture and where different interpretations and ideologies have come from
Yes, sir.
that led us to where we are. A lot of times we will focus on, let's say, a little over the last 100 years of church history.
We saying black folks, right?
I'm saying black folks
Come on,
now,
let's tell the truth.
right?
That's who we speaking
when
to
we talk
right
about the early Pentecostal revival here in
Yes, sir.
America,
Yes, sir.
where there is well over 2,000 plus years
Yes.
of church history to pull from.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to understand, when did culture, like for example,
Mm-hmm.
the word church was taken from the German word Kirche,
Okay.
which is not the same meaning as the word ecclesia in the Greek, because the word ecclesia does not mean a building, whereas the word Kirche
Right.
does.
Mm-hmm.
So
Following you. Tracking.
ecclesia deals with the people.
Yeah.
Kirche or church deals with the place.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of our cultural understanding of church is associated with the place,
Yeah.
not the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is that when we push it toward the place, then typically the place, and you asked the question earlier about
Yeah.
cliques and things of that nature, the place becomes a center where you have to meld into what this place says I need to be.
Right.
But what we've taught people to do is how to change behavior when they come to the place,
Got
but
you.
be different when they leave the place.
You talking good, sir.
And these are a lot of the things that Paul
Yeah.
dealt with, even in 1 Corinthians, when Paul is dealing with giftings.
Come on, bro.
Look, you guys want to come together and show how gifted you are.
Yeah.
You guys want to come together and lay hands and prophesy to each other and speak in tongues.
So this was going on back then?
This is going on back then.
Still going on?
Still going on today. And he says, listen, if you speak, Paul says, let me make it clear. If you speak in the tongues of men or angels, so there's no misunderstanding.
Absolutely.
Any language you want to pick, if you speak it in that,
Uh-huh.
but you don't have love,
Uh-huh.
it doesn't profit you anything.
Mm-hmm.
So we can come together and have the greatest services, the greatest moves of God. Oh, we had a great experience. But who have we really touched? Who has been impacted? Who has come to know who Jesus really is
Yeah.
in a deeply personal and intimate way,
Yeah.
in which we can understand that Jesus was not exclusive. He came for everybody.
Yeah.
Jesus said, listen, come to me, everybody
Everybody.
who's weary,
Yeah.
heavy laden,
Heavy laden.
I will give you rest.
Absolutely.
And this is the key. He says, when he says, take my yoke, then he says, learn of me.
Learn of me. Do we do the learning? Do we do and so the historical context, when we talk about learn of me, when people understand, I want you to go look this up if you're watching. The first century Jewish person, if you were to take on the interpretation of the Torah from the Torah, right? From that rabbi, which Jesus was a rabbi, right? There's a 24-hour sit. Not saying now that you have to, but if you want to become more like Jesus and take on his interpretation, they had to stay with him 24 hours, watch what he done. Not only did they watch what he do, he taught them, and then he said, hey, go do it. Now, how many of us are taking the time to discipline ourselves and really learn of him like a first century Jewish person learned from their rabbi.
The issue today
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
is that we have reinforced
yeah.
an ideology of immediate gratification.
Uh-huh.
So, for an example, now
Yes.
again, I might get myself in trouble here,
It's okay. Let's talk.
but when we talk deliverance ministry, right? Which I have no problem with deliverance.
I work in there. I got you.
However, a lot of what is communicated to individuals is you come to this service, you go to the altar,
Yes.
you have an experience, and you are delivered. When in actuality,
Uh-huh.
it's not deliverance what we need, it's discipline. So for people that are dealing with, lusting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You don't get delivered from a high sex drive.
Mm-hmm.
That's your biology,
Right.
right?
You don't pray, Lord, take my
No.
high sex drive
Yes,
away from
you're,
me.
you're going to have that.
Right.
What we need to understand is how do we learn? How are we taught? How do I understand how to discipline myself so that my inclinations do not control me?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
This does not happen overnight.
Right.
This is not immediate. This is not, got hands laid on me last night, I'm not going to be attracted to anyone again. No.
Right. Right.
It's a process of growth and understanding and development. And that's what, when we talk about sharing the news,
Mm-hmm.
it's us communicating to individuals in a real way. I'm not here because I'm perfect. I'm here because I'm working,
Constantly working.
constantly working on me.
That's it.
And as I learn more about him, the more that I change,
Yeah.
the more that I grow.
Yeah.
So that and a lot of times people will say, well, you're teaching people to live in a struggle. No, it's not. It's teaching people to understand that God still works with us in our humanity
Yeah.
as we grow to become more like him.
Absolutely. Absolute, bro. Look, man. This listen. Oh, okay. Let's see what the comments are saying. Look who's on the comments.
All right. Got some family.
Family.
My mother's watching. My sister's watching.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Victory Point in Springfield, Mass. You guys are watching.
Yeah. So the point that you made, I really appreciate that, because I think that, like I said, sometimes we miss it because we don't have the discipline. We don't want to take the time to discipline ourselves. And when you talk about discipline, you're talking about dedication. You're talking about struggle.
Yes.
You're talking about I have to wait.
Yes.
In an age where you're dealing in a time where the average attention span from social media is 8 seconds,
Yes.
8 to 5 seconds to grab somebody's attention,
Yes.
and they're off to something else.
Yes.
And when we talk about discipline, man, it's tough.
Think about it.
That's tough.
When we talk about things like being blessed, right?
Yes.
Typically, and I'm not against people giving. I'm gonna make that.
Hey, you know how
I'm
we
gonna put
feel.
that out there. I'm not
Right,
against.
right.
But however, one of the things that we teach people is you do this, and then God is gonna do this. Like you
Yeah.
sow the seed. What I've learned in my limited years of existence
Yes, sir.
is that developing the discipline with my finances is greater than just the seed that I sow. So I
They're
would-
coming for you.
They're coming. They can come.
Hey, I hear you, man. And that's real. That's real. You go ahead and finish your thought, man. I'm just sorry.
There
That
are
struck a
biblical
chord with me.
principles that shows us
Yes, sir.
how to be faithful and how to be good stewards.
Right.
That are life principles, right?
Right.
That go beyond just if I do this. Like I've been having bad spending habits the last 10 years.
Yes.
And now I find myself in a hole, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go sow this seed, and then God's going to. And I'm not saying God can't do it,
Right.
but
He can do it in a
oftentimes
day.
that's not what happens.
That's not.
Oftentimes
absolutely.
we are taught, and God will reveal to us how to understand. Listen, you have not been following good principles. Now I have to teach you
Yeah.
how to change you.
Right.
And if I do something immediately, you're
Yes,
not
sir.
going to be changed.
Facts. I'll tell you of an instance. You go crack up. This is when I first moved to Indy. I remember having my rent, and I come to church, and one of the speakers got up, was like, "I need you in this line. God is about to do X, Y, Z." Now I'm not putting it on the person, right?
Right.
I'm not putting it on a person. This has something to do with me.
Right.
I gave half of my rent money, expecting God to do this miracle in my life. And it's crazy because I had my rent money to pay my rent. So I give that away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this was so hilarious. So when it's time come for me to come to pay my rent, I did not have it. God didn't step in and miraculously make it so. I didn't get a check in the mail, none of those things. And that came from a lack of understanding.
A lack of understanding.
Not reading and understanding. And I remember, I told my mom, and my mom was talking about it. She was like, "No, you never do that." And she showed me in the scriptures about giving, and she broke it down. And I think sometimes when we actually the way we communicate,
The way we communicate it.
it's not saying we're playing on people's emotions or things like that, because it's about you and your lack of understanding.
Right.
But that was one of the experiences, bro.
And I think the thing that we fail to communicate is it's not God's obligation
Yeah.
to show up and meet our immediate need
Yeah.
when we have not been doing things, again, according to his word, which comes through proper teaching,
Proper teaching.
right? As a personal trainer, I would always, ask individuals who are looking, to either lose weight or build muscle, what is your goal? What do you want, right?
Right.
What do you want to do? And oftentimes what an individual would say they wanted was not realistic to,
Right.
I want to lose 30 pounds in 2 weeks. Okay, what is your life like now? No, I don't. Do you exercise? No. What is your eating habits like? Do you eat right? No.
Right.
Well, the first thing we need to work on is educating you how to change that which is you're doing wrong.
Right.
Right? Before we can get you on the path, the time frame that you're looking at, it's going to take longer than that just to recorrect your behavioral processes, your mentality.
You got my
right?
wheels turning, brother.
And oftentimes what'll happen is that we're looking for that immediate cure, that pill, if you will,
Yeah.
that will fix everything, that will erase the life that we've been living, instead of understanding how do we get educated on how to change me, right? How do I change me?
But some people don't want that medicine.
Some people don't want that.
Some people don't want it, man. And I think a lot of it, like, how y'all doing? Hey, what's up, family? How y'all doing? Yeah, what's happening now? We having a podcast anytime y'all want to stop through. You want to talk? Come see me. All right, for sure. Right now we're talking about apologetics. And this conversation is great. I'm telling you. And a lot of times, this is Pastor Eadie right here. Listen, we got an audience, y'all. A small audience out here. And we're talking about apologetics. Just check this out, what we're talking about real quick. So when we talk about this piece about not wanting to work on ourselves,
Elder.
not wanting to hear that truth, you know what I mean?
Right.
I think along with deliverance, there has to be a discipline.
There has to be.
It's not just I'm delivered and I'm running out. Because what I'm hearing you saying, it's more discipline. But I think when God allows you to have that freedom from whatever it is that you were dealing with, right? There has to come a discipline. There has to be some type of a harness of facilitating, saying, "Hey, come here. Let me show you how to do this. Let me show you how to stay disciplined.
Yes.
Not just preach, not just teach, but let me walk you through this, so you don't feel like you by yourself."
Let me. So, a lot of times you go to the store, you go to
Right.
Walgreens, Walmart,
For sure.
whatever it is, and you'll see these, these weight loss medications, right?
Yeah.
Hydroxycut, whatever.
Right.
And not knocking any brand. Don't sue me. But oftentimes you'll see on there, that this weight loss medication works with diet and exercise, right?
Yeah.
So you might talk to somebody who takes this medication, and they take these. It's not even medication; it's some type of supplement, right? And they're taking it, and they're dieting, and they're exercising, and they're getting up in the morning, and they're running, and they're changing their eating habits.
For sure.
And then 6 months later, they've lost weight, and they're looking good. And somebody said, "What have you been doing?" "Oh, I've been taking this hydroxycut." And that person says, "Oh, I'm going to get some too," right?
Right.
And they get it, and they're like, "It's not working for me," because the person attributed their weight loss to the medication, but really
They've been working out.
they've been working out.
They've been working out. Facts.
They have disciplined themselves,
Yeah, facts.
and the medication really was more like a placebo.
We do that a lot.
We
with
do that a lot.
We do that a lot with with a whole lot of products.
All the time. But what happens is that people will associate what you're doing with. So, for an example,
Yeah.
if we bring it to church level,
Church level.
this is gonna get me in trouble.
Talk to me.
When you have been disciplining yourself, right?
Yes, sir.
You've been in your word, you've been fasting. God, I need help.
Right.
And you've been praying, you've been going on this path of trying to change, to make change, and you put the work in, and you go to a service one day. Certain whatever preacher, prophet. I'm not here to translate on. Someone says, "Oh, you're different," and you attribute everything to the moment. And I'm not saying the prayer or the altar didn't help in that moment. But what happens is that
Straight facts.
what we'll do is that we'll cause people to start chasing the moment.
Yeah.
I need God to do something, so I'm going to chase the moment.
And-
But what happens in the process of chasing the moment, we miss the change. Because the change didn't happen in the moment. The change occurs. If we're going to talk physical transformation, it's called tension over time.
I'm about to throw this microphone at him.
Change occurs within tension over time. So we'll pray things like this: God, I need change. Thank you. We'll pray things like, God, I need change.
Yes, sir.
God, I need strength.
Yes, sir.
Right? Now, going back to, again, my personal training days. In order to gain strength, you have to go into a process which is called hypertrophy. Right? It is when you are loading up weight, and as you're lifting weight, what you're literally doing is you're making microscopic tears in your muscle. You're breaking down. You're lifting heavy weights.
Absolutely.
So that you get stronger. You need tension over time, resistance to build muscle.
I see where you're going.
God,
I feel it.
I need to be stronger. God, I can't take this. God, I need to be stronger. God, I can't take this.
Yeah.
God, you say you're not going to put more on me. The literal way to get stronger is sometimes to have more than you feel you can bear.
Yeah.
Now, God says, listen, I will spot you.
I will spot you.
I'm right there. I'm not going to leave you by yourself.
Yeah. But you
Right?
gotta get stronger.
But in order for you to get stronger, you have to lift this heavy load.
Yeah.
You got to push this. You got to push through this.
Yeah.
Right? This is not going to happen overnight.
Man.
This is understanding.
Yeah.
Right? I'm learning. Right? So then when the trials come, when the tests come, I am understanding through his word how I'm growing with this.
Yeah.
And what I find out is that if I'm going to keep growing stronger,
For sure.
what I was lifting last year, I can't lift this year. But what I lifted last year communicated to my body how to lift what I'm lifting this year. It's called muscle memory.
Muscle memory, bro. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So because I was able to get through it last year,
Yeah.
I didn't understand that I didn't just get bigger, but I understood how to apply form and technique.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I can move through it with grace.
So when I communicate with this to somebody, I'm taking this holistically, all of these parts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm communicating to somebody, yes, I go to church. Yes, I give. Yes, but I also do this.
That's where we miss it. We do not give the behind the scenes, and I call it the sauce.
The sauce.
You do not give the sauce. You give me the Instagram shot. You don't give me what all went into the shot.
Exactly.
And you see how I showed you the shot earlier? I said, this is what goes into it.
Yes.
This is the sauce. This is how it works. that's what I feel like sometimes we miss as leaders, preachers, and teachers.
You know who gave the sauce? Paul, man.
Paul gave the sauce all day.
Look
all
at what I
day.
went through. Look at what I come from.
Yes, sir.
But
Yes,
where
sir.
am I going?
Man, come on, bro. Come on, bro. Come on, bro.
Pastor, good to see you, sir.
Come on, bro. Listen, man, I can't take it. Listen, this is crazy.
Listen, we can talk about this all day.
We're going to have to come back.
Because, can I say this real quick?
You good.
Apologetics, a lot of people get afraid of it because it sounds scarier than what it is.
And it's not.
Yes, there's an understanding of being able to go in and, I study early church history and I study, how to interpret the text and all of those things. But all of it means, what I know means nothing if I don't know how to communicate it in a way where my audience can comprehend it. And if I'm not speaking in a way in which what I know can be communicated in a way that it can be comprehended
Absolutely.
in a cultural context,
Yep.
and where that comes is understanding who I am and what God has done in me,
Mm-hmm.
and how I fit into the grand plan of God.
Absolutely.
Right. And so for me, it's not about saving the world.
Yeah.
It's about impacting the area where God has placed me.
I want to go save the world.
You
hear that? You hear that?
Yes.
You know what it is. Hey, I just got saved. I want to go save the world.
Nothing against international,
Right.
but I'm worried about my neighborhood.
Absolutely.
I'm worried about the kids that I see in school every single day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm worried about and I'm glad to have my wife and sons. I'm worried about the world that they are around and how they
Yeah.
can go into the world that they're growing up in and be who they are
Right.
and still be able to communicate their faith.
I love it. Love it, bro. Listen, you know we definitely have to do this again.
Oh, all day.
I know you're on the East Coast. I'm in the Midwest. We might have to do something virtual.
All day. Any
all
day.
I got you. Go ahead, tell the people where they can look you up, how they can find you as
Listen,
well.
thank you very much. I'm glad.
Bro.
Thank you for having me on.
Come on, bro. Come on, bro.
We go back.
Anytime.
We
We go
go
back.
back.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm on social media. You can find me. I have on Facebook, Fit Pastor, PHIT, PASTOR, or David Eadie Sr. We're on YouTube, The Point podcast. You can, if you go to The Point with DavidEadie.com. We have a podcast that we're also talking things, apologetics, cultural apologetics, navigating the intersection of faith and culture, and all those different things. So you can find us out there, and be glad to have you become support.
Listen, we gotta come. We gotta have another rap session, and maybe we get in some trouble.
We can always get in trouble.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Listen, you already know this has been another episode of Social Remedy TV live from the PAW Convention here in the vending area. If you haven't had your headshots, come on down. If you're watching, come on down. I'm doing headshots. I'm telling you, they're dope. They're nice. They're cool. Come see me.
One last thing, sorry.
Go ahead.
I want to give one more shout out to Victory Point. You can find us at Victory Point.
Absolutely.
Also, as well, download the app. It's on Android and Apple, and on Facebook and all social media channels.
Listen, before we go, give a word of encouragement to anyone that wants to learn or get into evangelism.
Listen, a lot of times when we talk evangelism, it can appear scary. We don't know where to start, where to begin. Where maybe you don't feel like you are competent in the Word of God, understanding all of the different nuances and history and all that. Listen, when Peter says, give reason for the hope that you have, it starts simply by you taking a moment, whether it's a neighbor, whether it's a family member. Listen, you don't have to break down all the hidden mysteries of the gospel and the Godhead to just let somebody know that there's hope in this world, that you have hope. In spite of everything that's going on, you have hope. And that is a message that resonates with people across all cultural norms. You are special. You are created by God. And you have a message that somebody needs to hear. So understand that no matter who you are and where you are and what you have done, it's not too late for God to use you Use your voice and use your story to let somebody know that Jesus is here for anybody and everybody that needs him. God bless you. Jesus.
That's cool. I'm with it. I'm with it. Especially the part where you're talking about, it's not in the building, man. And it's the way we communicate these things. And we put it in such a way whereas it's like, hey, I need you to come to church in order to get God. It's not you saying I need you to come to church in order to get God. I need you to come connect with him. Bro, at the altar, this is what I found. I'm doing altar work. The person will come up. And I told him, I said, listen, you don't have to confess to me that you've done. Right. I said, talk to your God. You talk to him. You confess. But this is what I want you to do. I want you to renounce everything that you've been going through, some of the things that you've been in leagues with, right? And you have that communication with him. Yep. And once you're done with that, I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell you why you did what you did, what we're doing. And then, now it happens for you. Because that's one thing I try to stay away from. I remove the fact of, like, you're doing this because I'm telling you to do it. Yes. No. Exactly. No, I want you to understand. That's why we don't do the don't go more like that. Like yeah. Terrorism. Yeah. Because people be in terrorism because they told them they're terrorists. Right. No. Nah, you have to, it's something you have to know and feel it has to yourself. Be you. Yes. It has to be you. Whenever somebody received the Holy Ghost in Scripture, they just received it while the word was being given. Yes. It was preaching. They're like, wait, what is it? I need that. I need that. Okay, now bet. But I'm not telling you, oh, you need to go do this next. Right. Because then they're disconnected from it. Bro. Yes, man. This is another one. This is something else I taught too. This is for you, bro. What's up, my man? How you doing? This is my youngest son, Dawson. Nice to meet you, Dawson. I see you in pictures all the time. Listen, this is one of my good friends right here. Your dad's a good man. Do you listen to him or you get in trouble? Dawson. It's all good, my man. Who's your favorite football team? The Patriots? Okay. All right now. All right now. You already know. Good to see you. I love you. Love you, man. Yes, sir. Good to see you in the house. I ain't seen you all week, man. Just got here yesterday. Okay. Yeah, just got here yesterday. Yeah. You're going to have to come sit down with me, Bishop. All right. Catch me, if not tonight, probably not tonight, tomorrow. Okay. All right. Tomorrow. I got your number. I'll text you. Okay. We'll get together. I want to rap with you. All right. Okay, man. How you doing? Good. Other one. Everybody growing up. How you doing? How are you? I know, really. I feel old. Y'all hooked up? Yeah. I know. This is my brother right here. We go back. Really? We go way. You were in Eadie. I know y'all So it's not this. It's not this. We're supposed to ask for 30. No, you
We can't do it. I don't even push people to the wall. They come and say, telling me what I missed the ministry. I feel the same. I had a brother, an older deacon, and I told him, you can't. I got to stop. We have the border, right? The vote is saturated, upset. They kept coming. And what happens on Sunday? We got high praise, and then we have what in the word, everything. Over the Sunday. When holding Father, then you say, you want that?
That's what I'm supposed to anyway. We've been trying to do God's work.
I said, we've been doing what the Holy Ghost does, is not us. Because the thing about it is that even if we're saying because the stuff, because she brought it out and she told the truth. It was true. Because
we together. What are we doing?
What's the purpose of getting together? That's all we have. What are we doing?
Healthcare professionals, resources, not just for homeless people. This is going to be for everybody that may need anything. Food, clothes, transportation, jobs. That's it. And we have the whole man.
The entire whole man.
Whole man. That's what we get into.
I know y'all. The experience.
I already know. Yes. I guess.
My wife calls it. My wife calls it programming.
I call it rewiring. Rewired. It has to be rewired.
I love that. So,
You gotta be rewired.
you see how you put it in, gotta be rewired. Yes, sir. Right. Absolutely. That's a coach swag right there. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's how we're gonna grow.
Yeah.
Because we wonder why we got church in Philadelphia, but we're not. Because we're not. You know the biggest thing they give them the word.
Hold on.
The word.
I'm gonna ask you this. So I'm fresh on the streets and you telling me to serve a God that you serve. Why should I serve? Right. Can you tell me why? And not just because the scripture said why. Not just because. You should have heard of it.
What else I bring up? Talk about the change. You want to do that? I said, because I bring it to them. I said, do we have people come in that used to be in this so much stuff? I said, you're not that anymore. You're new. You're preaching in Christ. Don't say you're an ex. You're new. But at the same time, you did enjoy what you did. But we got to make it like say what? Money? We got to say what? But we got to make this look like what is the benefit? A lot of them, just let them talk about that stuff because a lot of them have found out they messed up, and, they messed them up.
Yeah.
But they love to do what they do. But now they found out once they get to because of your whole man, we got to talk about loving themselves.
Yes.
It's a whole package. And we've been leaving out. All we talking about get the Holy Ghost. That's it. And he said the Holy Ghost gonna fix it.
Yeah. I'm gonna have this tomorrow. I'll text you.
All right.
Yep. I'm gonna be down here about 11.
Okay. Just let me know.